It's I think that that word is a very polarizing term, future proofing your business, and I think it means a lot of different things to a lot of different people. It also depends on whatever experience you might have had, in your business. So I do think that's important to actually have a bit of a discussion as we start this off on what does future proofing
Yeah,
mean.
yeah. Future proofing is really building on the history and looking forward. So let me just welcome everybody. We have quite a few participants here on the webinar. Thanks for joining us today. I'm Michael Demp, VP of Product Strategy for TAG Video System. I'll be the host and the moderator for today. And we have with us Kevin Joyce, Zero Friction Officer from TAG Video Systems, and also Chuck Asek, CTO of BNS. We really debated about what the subject of this webinar will be and how we want to do that. And it started with, should we just do a presentation on a subject, or should we just have an open conversation? And we have a certain culture at TAG, and we decided we're just going to stick with this culture, and we're just going to have a conversation and really talk about the subject, open it up and for a debate and see where we get with that. So the goal of this is to really understand the history and how the world of streaming technology changes today. Just to kind of set the stage, I wanted to bring a few numbers. I know it's very common on those webinars. So we're looking at streaming market that is growing, constantly growing. It has been growing for the last 10 years, and it continues growing. Just to give some real numbers, we're talking about market that is evaluated at about $106 billion in 2023 and estimated to grow to 400 or so billion dollars by 2030. So this really driven by a lot of demand for OTT services, new technologies that coming with the OTT, such as fast, such as low latency streaming, especially in sports, but not only sports, esports. We're talking about corporate communication. We're talking about news. News today compete with social media. Social media is almost instantaneous. So we need more low latency streaming, more low latency technologies and things like that. So with all this new technology, the role of monitoring and probing and ensuring that video stays at the highest quality is even more important. We have some tools that help us, such as AI, machine learning, other tools that come handy to do this, but there is nothing that replaces the human factor in this. So we want to talk about the differences between technology and human factor and how people made decisions 10 years ago and how they're making them now. So I have a question
Michael,
for
hang on one sec, Michael. I just want to,
yes.
before we begin, I want to introduce Chuck. Yeah, and myself. I'm from TAG. Chuck is from BNS. We formed a partnership about 6 months ago. BNS has quite a lot of history in the traditional service provider market, which can be a challenging market in some parts of the world right now as the business models change, as Michael discussed. And a lot of what, Chuck has a long history. I'll let him introduce himself on the technology side of things. I'm on the business side of the vendor side of things. And um, this relationship all started because of the huge transformation that's happening in the service provider market, and how they find themselves with technology stacks that are not necessarily suited for where the business needs to go in the future. And it's more than just technology. There is a very strong business model and economic issue that comes into play that inhibits providers from being able to go where they're wanting to go. So that's where we were thinking, is there such thing as future proofing your business? We were talking about this before the call. It's a really nice term. It's tough to do it over an extended period of time, but you definitely better pick a partner that you can be confident with over a long period of time. And the only other thing I would tell you is that you mentioned a number 100 billion to 400 billion. The entire technology business for the broadcast and media industry is 50 billion a year and has been flat for 10 years. So, you talk about future proofing your business, you really got to select the right partners. Chuck, please, you've got an impressive history, so I think it's worthwhile sharing with everybody where did you get your scars?
Sure, sure. And I'll be quick about it because we could be here for a while. But yeah, I'm Chuck Hassick, CTO for Bold New Solutions, and very excited about this partnership with TAG. It's been great so far, and we're very excited about the partnership and what TAG brings to the space. My background, you mentioned service providers. Been working for service providers for over 20 years. I've been at the forefront of launching a number of IP streaming services, all the way back to IPTV type services, even with real video at one point when I was with Time Warner Cable, all the way through ABR, launches of video services. As I mentioned, I was at Time Warner Cable for a number of years. Then helped found Layer 3 TV, which got acquired by T-Mobile, launched a couple video services at T-Mobile. So I've been in the trenches. And so I know the pain and the scars of what it is to launch a service. But as you mentioned, once you build it and get it out there, not that it becomes antiquated, but this is a live service that's delivering content and services to customers. It's hard to just start making changes and introducing new technology because you got to keep the business running. You've got to make sure the customers are happy, and it just gets more and more difficult to introduce change. So, when you look at future proofing, I agree that that's a tough thing to look at. Everybody's crystal ball is only as good as, we probably have all the same crystal ball that we can look into the future. So, what I would really say about it is, we have to make good, educated decisions, understand what we're trying to go, where we're trying to go, where the customers want us to go, and make good decisions as we go along, and being flexible in terms of maybe how we build things, how we architect, how we design our platforms, so we can make changes without disrupting the service or massive disruptions to our customer service. So it's a fine balance of wanting to move quickly, but also maintaining something that's going to keep your customers happy and delighted.
I had a question for you, Chuck. So, I'm looking at the names of the people that are attending this, and there's a lot of familiar company names, some very progressive companies. And the thing that just stood out to me was culture. I know, you know, I'm the fluffy one on this call, I guess, business side and culture. We're very tech-oriented business. But when I look at, some of the companies here, DAZN and BBC and some of the channel partners I see on this call, culture is a big part of it.
Yeah.
It's a mentality that how they're going to embrace the change, and a really dangerous word. I hate to say this, that doesn't often happen, but is critical to this, is trust. The trust between the provider, the media company, and the technology partner they have. Because the days of being able to predict what you will need for what period of time, it just doesn't exist. And they're in a very ambiguous world. So I'm just curious, when you're having these technology discussions, what are the engineers? What are the engineering managers? What are the CTOs? How are they dealing with that?
Yeah. No, you bring up a great thing, culture and trust. I think those are two massive things that in the right organization have a healthy dose of those. And, can the business units can work together to understand where things are going. And trust is critical between, folks doing programming deals and trying to understand the content and where things are going, the product people of developing where the product is headed, what features and functions, and balancing that against everything else you need to do. And then the tech people who are trying to build this stuff, operationalize it, productize it, get it out, get it deployed, and work successfully. And they all have to work in harmony together. I think it's critical that once again you have trust built into your culture, that everyone can work together and row in the same direction. And each of those organizations, part of that is good communication between them all and understanding what each of them are doing, staying coordinated. And once again, I think that all comes back to the culture and what the leadership of that organization is built into that. So, we certainly get a sense of that when we go and talk with an organization of where they're at, even on the curve. Some are transforming from older technologies to maybe newer delivery technologies. Some are maybe a newer company who has only been out there for a couple years and really growing. So we kind of see everything when we're out there, and they each pose different, unique challenges, right? Sometimes if it's a newer company, they're trying to get an understanding of where they're headed, where they're going, how they're going to grow their product and services, versus a more established company kind of knows what they've been doing, but are trying to transform on the technology base that they have and move into some newer things. And I think that's where these tools can help them, is our ability to have a very flexible, powerful tool that can fit into a lot of different environments that we can once again work with them to fit in the best way possible when they're making these changes or growing, and working closely with those organizations.
So Michael, you got VOD to linear, you got linear to fast, you've got SaaS versus CapEx. So anyway, back to you, and I really would be interested in having, the participants here, give us some insight. Like how important are the business models? How important is the culture and operational ways that they engage with their vendors? What is
Since
it
you
that
mentioned business models, I think it's important to look at, we know the technology changes. We know we deal with things that we haven't dealt before. But did the business model really change in our industry a lot? Like, let's look 5 years back and try to think 5 years ahead. Do you think the challenges that we deal with are going to be addressed by the business models that we have today, or do we need to adapt? Do we need to come with new ideas?
clarification question? Business model for whom? For the service providers or for the technology providers to the media companies or service providers? Which business
They
model are
have
you
to be
talking about?
aligned. You cannot have different business models, right? So
Oh,
if the service provider has a preference for OpEx versus CapEx, for example, and you're trying uh, to to offer your solution in a model that doesn't fit their needs, then it's not going to be a successful partnership. So they have to be aligned. So I think it's to answer your question, I think it's on both sides.
And
And
I was going to add to that, it maybe need to be flexible, very much like a lot of people move to the cloud and then realize the cloud's a massive OpEx cost. And maybe it doesn't do everything I want, but I want to move some stuff on-prem and move to more of a CapEx model. So I think it's kind of optimizing the demands versus, how you want to pay for it and what you're trying to do with the business. So I think, sometimes a SaaS model works great to go, we want to go try something new. We want to invest a bunch of CapEx into this project. Let's go try this out. Let's go innovate. Let's do something interesting. And we'll kind of maybe rent to own or do a SaaS model for now until we know we want to grow this. Same with the cloud. Cloud's great when you want to prototype, but if you're running thousands of linear channels all the time through the cloud, maybe it makes more sense to put them on-prem. So I think it's kind of optimizing the operational models, the cost models to the business models of what you want to do. And one size doesn't fit all.
I
but I
also
see some
think
of
it's
the when
actually
I
beyond just how you pay for the services, because that's a preference. It's country regulations and things like that. So that's not something we can change. But what we can change and adapt to is, like, we at TAG have a very interesting, a very unique business model called zero friction, right? So it's on top of how we pay. It's actually what we offer and how people consume our services and our software. So, do you agree with this, Kevin?
yeah, since I'm the zero friction officer, I have to agree with you on that. But but I still believe, and I spend a lot of my time talking to our clients about this, that in many ways, I believe, especially the larger media organizations, the business is changing right in front of their eyes. But I think that they're constrained by legacy, financial structures of their business and how they buy. And I think in some ways, it it puts them at a disadvantage. When I look at some of the smaller and newer services that come out that don't have that technological debt, that we see, they seem to be far more free in thinking about their services and launching their services. And so the larger guys, they're in a tough spot. And I really would be interested in knowing, as a technology provider, and I know we only provide one little niche in this big scheme of things, what is it that we as the vendor community could be doing better to make it easier to adopt the state of the art technology? For the sake of this discussion, let's say we're state of the art in monitoring. We're the only exclusive monitoring platform across all the applications. What is it that we should be doing better? We offer OPEX, we offer CAPEX, we offer hourly, we offer monthly, we offer yearly, we offer 3 yearly. What more could we do to make it easier for companies to get out of that technological debt? I would love to hear from anybody listening to this. Is that a problem, or do you think that's something that's been addressed by our industry? Anyway, that's all I would say about the business.
Somebody wants to ask or answer Kevin's question, just use the Q&A box. You can type your answer there. We will read it aloud to everybody.
I had a discussion with a purchasing agent today, and had this exact discussion. And they told me that they cannot stand OPEX, that the OPEX costs are going out of control. And whether it's ERP systems, whether it's IT systems, everybody is shifting them over to OPEX costs, and they're just are completely disgusted about that. And so if you talk to them CapEx versus OPEX, they're like CapEx all the time. So it's making me think, we have to still allow them to buy CapEx, but get very creative from a financing perspective to allow the engineers, most of the people here, I'm sure, are engineers, for you guys to be able to adopt the technology. So anyway, it's got me thinking about it.
Yep. Well, the finance people want predictability, and if you get in a pure OPEX model, it creates this level of unpredictability. Does something grow, something spike, and all of a sudden we're getting this big bill at the end of the month we didn't expect, right? So how do you smooth that out, or come in with a model that makes sense for the finance folks, right, who have to support this
As long as the OPEX model scales in line with the revenue and EBITDA or profit that you're bringing in, who cares if your OPEX is more at the end of a month if you brought in more revenue and more profit, in that.
Mm-hmm.
Unfortunately, I just don't feel that, our industry is at that point yet where they have that flexibility. And I feel they get stuck with technological debt. And I think it delays the engineers from being able to deploy the best in breed technology to offer the consumer the best services.
Mm-hmm.
So speaking of technological depth, and let's focus on technology for a second versus the business models. Chuck, what do you think for people who accumulated this technical depth? What is the right thing to do to make you future proof, right? We talked about making decisions and adjusting, having the right partnership and things like that. But on the technology side, what are the right steps to make in order to not, well, it's probably impossible to not accumulate any technological depth at all, but to minimize that impact?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, certainly things in in terms of design and modularity of your platform. How easily can we swap out, from say an AVC to an HEVC encoder? Are we buying technology across the stack that grows with us, right? Sometimes that's not possible. You may be on an older head end controller type platform with older set top boxes. That there the transformation is a bit more drastic, right? If you're trying to move to adaptive streaming or a lot of the newer technologies. Certainly trying to keep pace with them is important, right? As you're seeing the technology shift and change in terms of delivery methods, delivery technologies, media pipelines, really trying to, you don't have to be ahead of the curve, but, try to be a fast follower, or try to be very pragmatic in your decision making as you're going along and adopting new technologies, right? But it can be a challenge, because you've invested a lot of money in your platform, you're generating revenue off of it. It can be tough for especially a lot of the smaller operators to go and make a large investment to move to something new. But I would say a lot of the newer platforms are, once again, more modular in nature. They're not a closed ecosystem. So you have a lot more flexibility in terms of how you grow and migrate it once you've kind of flipped that switch, right? You can choose between different CDNs. You can choose between different encoder vendors, back offices, standardization around a lot of the set-top box and, in-home device OSs between Android TV, and also even tvOS devices, smart TVs. There's just a lot more options out there, which can also create a lot more confusion, right, for folks of what direction to go, where do we head, and even in that regard, you talked about like low latency or new codecs. It's hard to know when to make the right decision. Like, are we buying things now that are going to support low latency down the road when there is no one industry standard. There's a lot of variations of that. And I think we saw that with HDR, a few years ago, where there were a number of flavors of HDR, and it was hard to make one decision as to which direction to go. So you kind of have to do what's right for your business and balancing that against, trying to make some very good, educated decisions, as to where the industry is going to head.
I'll tell you
I'm glad you
one of
made
the
that comment about low latency. I just had a customer meeting last week, and the customer was asking me because they are in kind of a gaming industry, and they were asking me what is latest in the latency area, because that's super important to them. That's critical to them to deliver the lowest latency. But it's not only in sports. As I said at the beginning, we see a lot of news channels that are really keen about reducing the latency. And I agree. There's just too many different formats and protocols and standards.
Mhm.
And
So how do
today
you
that
deal with that? So how
everybody.
do you deal with that, Michael? I mean, we tag
Mhm.
by the nature of our product, we have to integrate with everybody.
We integrate with everybody. We
You know, we
support most of the protocols,
yeah.
but we also very cautious on where we put our investments, right? So we
But,
look at the
but
industry.
as we go forward, I was going to say, that puts a lot of trust on the technology buyers when they're buying an ecosystem, and in the past, and one of my favorite phrases to just be disgusted about is when I hear a customer tell me that they went with XYZ vendor because it gave them one throat to choke. And it's like, are you kidding me? This is your reason to buy from someone? Because you can choke one throat because their product isn't working. Now, I know the IP transformation still has a long ways to go, but you know, trusting that ecosystem of partners, and it's just not technological. There's still a lot of humans involved in making those APIs work and bugs, and it's a work in progress, and always continuous improvement process. So that's where I really think that that's a mindset because, and I think there's actually a generational mindset is that there's a
It's
certain
about
generation, I won't say
maturity.
who is okay with one throat to choke, and there's another generation that would never pick a vendor for one throat to choke.
It's a maturity. It's a technology maturity. We see technologies come to the market and disappear, but those that are really mature and ready to go and ready to scale are the ones that winning.
Yeah.
And we see many, especially in low latency, some of the more mature technologies, and others less. So it's about, as you said, it's experience and trust and ability to really scale. And scale is one of the key factors today, where we're not talking about local streaming anymore. We scale production, we scale delivery, we scale playout. Cloud helps us to scale, but more hybrid environments help us even more through this.
Yeah. But along that line, you want to pick partners in your ecosystem that are going to scale and grow with you, right? That you can trust, that are going to implement the features and functions and new product ideas as you're growing, right? Because you don't want to end up picking someone. Oh, I've deployed 1,000 encoders from this one vendor, but they're not making updates, or a CDN that's just kind of lagging the times. They're not implementing the things they need for low latency. So you need a good partner that is going to grow with you, right? And that you can trust, and is going to stay in step with the industry. It isn't going to fall too far behind, right? Because you're only as good as the weakest link in that ecosystem, right?
It's not easy. I mean, again, we're lucky in some ways. TAG, BNS has is involved in multiple technologies. TAG is just monitoring, and I'm not at liberty to share what percentage of our R&D investments that we make are just dedicated to keeping the pace of change and staying on top of the codex changes, the security changes. God forbid you used CrowdStrike and you whatever you're using for that stuff. It's a full-time job, and all we do is monitoring. So I don't actually understand how a company like these end-to-end providers, how can they possibly stay on top of the change that's happening versus competing with, you know, a lot of other vendors that are coming up where that's all they do. In the
I
northeast of the
I
U.S.,
think I
we
have
would
an
say,
answer for you, Kevin, to
okay,
how
good.
they stay, and that's all about data. It's analyzing your data, it's analyzing what you're dealing with, it's understanding and making sense from the data. If we're talking about monitoring, well, we generate tons of data, right? We deal with video streaming. We look at the video streams, we look at the quality and the performance. We generate a lot of data. We send some alarms in real time. Okay, yeah, we tell you something is wrong right now. But you always want to go back and see what happened in the last month. How did my video quality, video streaming has changed? And based on concrete data, make your decisions in the future. Because you cannot make decisions without the data, right?
Well, let me ask you, Chuck or Michael. I mean, it's a nice thing to say, okay, but how many of our clients actually truly are analyzing all of that data? You know, let's just take the monitoring data and the different monitoring issues they have from us in the live production through play out through traditional delivery. It's a behemoth to actually do all of. I don't think we're
Well,
there
some
yet.
of it might be reactive. Like I'm just trying to track down an issue that occurred. But some of it's proactive, setting KPIs. Hey, we launch a new service, we launch a new product, we launch a new channel. How did it perform? Or we made changes on our set-top box software, or we, deployed new packager software, things like that. I think it's around the proactive side is setting the KPIs to understand we made these changes. How do we expect them to affect the performance of the platform? And then going back and measuring them, but also having a great tool that, hey, we're having a problem. We didn't expect this. Can we use this tool to help us diagnose and figure out what's going on? Right.
Well, what I
And
would
the
say
data
is,
is there. I think it's having the right tool to help make sense of it, right?
Yeah.
Rather than just having stacks of data.
Oh, just raw data is impossible to deal with. Absolutely
Yeah.
have to
let me
have
tell
tools. You like,
Yeah.
God, there is AI and ChatGPT, right? What would we do
Yeah.
without it?
Yeah.
Like,
well, I would
I
say
think I
for
think that's where AI, we've
yeah,
had big data for years. The problem we had for a long time, we weren't able to apply context to it, right? That's where, people had to sit down and sift through things and kind of understand it. I think that's where AI can help because AI adds context to data.
yeah.
And so applying AI tools could help maybe bring some of these things to the forefront faster than we have before, right? Because it's able to sort through it and understand it in a different way than just manually sorting through it.
We talked about this on our prep call, Chuck, is that, do we want to talk about AI? And we were like, you know what? Why don't we try to finish cloud before we enter AI? Because yeah,
what do you mean? Isn't cloud finished already? Come on.
that I think,
I, the
I
last year has been the main theme that I hear from a lot of people. There were a number of conferences that I participated in were about hybrid environments.
yeah.
Hybrid, not moving away from cloud, but making sure you use cloud for what it's intent, what it makes sense, where you get the best return on investment,
Okay, that's
and
the
not
key,
just
right?
put
And I
all
think
the
that's
eggs in
the
the same
key
bucket.
is that, we're a very technologically driven industry. We love shiny objects. We're all a bunch of engineers. Um, and as incredible operational efficiencies as the cloud does give and can give, you know, along the way, somebody said, oh God, there's a business side of this thing. So as cool as that is, it's got to make economic sense. And I think that has to be the yin yang. And as we draw to an end here of the time that you guys were kind enough to give us, all I would say is that the feedback, don't assume that the vendors understand, exactly the business models that you need, and challenge them. Challenge them to give you a business model that will allow you to deploy best in breed technologies, but that aligns where you are in your technological debt evolutionary cycle. You know, some vendors don't have the flexibility. They might not be able to do it. They're stuck with their models. But I think you're going to find there's a lot of next generation vendors that will align themselves to your business if you're willing to commit to them as well. And there's a trust factor there. There are a few questions in the chat, Michael. I'll defer to you to take a look at those, read them real quickly, and then prioritize if any of those you want to get to.
Sure. So, there's more right now. Okay. Let's start from the top. So, how would you recommend preparing a transition between monitoring platforms to make it easier?
How would you recommend preparing for a transition between
monitoring platforms to make it easier? Well, question: what easier means? Is it cheaper? Is it easier on your operators?
I mean, certainly if you can stand them up side by side, and would be the best if you can accommodate that, right? To once again more easily transition from one to the other. But I don't think there's anything precluding from having two in place at one point if you want to ease a transition, right?
Well, I'll say that, and this is a very tag centric answer. I'm sorry to do it that way, but we have, in the 16 years that tag has been in business, we are replacing a legacy monitoring system. Now, we're not replacing it unless there's a compelling event. They're building a new facility. There's a transition to IP. But in every single situation, we are in a bake-off. We are providing the technology, investing in the client without the client investing in us, except for the time, and having them compare both to see whether the future technology is able to be equal to or better than the past. And we've had to do that for 16 years. And that's how we manage that transition with our clients, and time it such when the budgets are there that the engineers can go as soon as they get it. And that's how we've done it.
And the second question is exactly about budgets. How can we ensure that this transition doesn't exceed the budget?
That's a toughie. But again, there's, in some of these industries, they're under the quality of scale, the quality of service at scale that they're being asked to deliver, X number, exponentially more channels with lower costs. That's, we as vendors need to understand our business, and know the environment we're selling into, and there better be a way for our clients to acquire the technology in those headwinds. And that's our job. We have to do that. So we have to keep lowering that cost or increasing the capabilities. So I would say one of the things that is happening is that the scale of which we're able to do is helping reduce costs in other area. And yes, I hate to say this, that can be labor, at times. And so we need to be able to provide a more economic solution in the future than they have today.
And I'll take a little bit of your zero friction role, and I think zero friction actually helps with this a lot because it's very predictable. It's very easy to understand. There is no surprises. A lot of times you go and integrate a new solution, you find yourself with surprises. Oh, I didn't purchase that package. I need to add that functionality. I have to have this license. I remember 25 years ago or so, I was maybe 30 years, almost 30 years ago. I was kind of a young IT guy, and I bought a Cisco router for my company. And I was surprised I had to buy some software package with that because, well, like you want to get logs from the router, you have to have certain software to come with that. Well, that was a big surprise, and since then I kind of make sure that I'm not going to be surprised anymore. So I think zero friction is really the solution to that. It really gives you all the functionality, all the features, everything included with no surprises. And speaking of tag functionality, just judging by some of the questions here, it looks like maybe some of the participants don't know TAG enough. So maybe just a 2 minute kind of spiel on what TAG does and what the platform is, Kevin?
We could. I'd hate to bore them with that. Tag is a real-time monitoring platform. We only do real time. We don't do VOD. That's something we might consider in the future. We have one product. That's the real-time media platform. That real-time media platform has every single monitoring feature, required, and we could always be better, and we're always getting better for live production, multi-viewing, for playout, compressed and uncompressed sources, and for delivery, OTT and traditional delivery. And you guys know that each one of those use cases has very, very different feature requirements. And all of those features fall within one single product, the real-time media platform. And the way that you acquire that is by buying a bank, if you will, of zero friction licenses that allow you to use our technology across every single feature. We can get into it more at other times. So that's what we do. All we do is monitoring. We don't do anything else. And we compete with people that have other portfolios of solutions, and monitoring is just one of the things that we do. So, we believe that if we just focus on one thing and try to be the best at that'll give you the best experience.
Yeah.
We have little time, and I know this is a Michael, in those questions, I see Scuddy, and I would probably say Scuddy is one of the number one things that we end up having discussions with in today. It's the cash register. So would you care to comment about Scuddy, you or Chuck, on how we do it or the challenges that people have with Scuddy?
Um, sure. Yeah, Scotty is a cash register because it ensures that you can monetize on your video streams, especially in things like fast channels. It becomes more critical. That's all fast is about. It's about monetizing your existing content. So what TAG does is it helps monitor, and Scotty is a term everybody uses because that's a very technological, but we're actually talking about ad insertion, commercials inserted into the video streams, right? So it's not just the Scotty markers themselves. We do that all. We monitor Scotty 104 on the broadband side. We monitor Scotty 35 on the TS IP side. We monitor Scotty being inserted into OTT manifest files. So complete end-to-end visibility into the ad insertion technology. But we also have some other interesting technologies on top of that. For example, content matching. I know people familiar with that. It's a technology that allows us to match between different video streams and ensure that the content is the same or different in two different monitoring points, regardless of what the resolution, frame rate, bitrate is. So we can take a stream on the ingest, and we can take the stream on the egress or post CDN and compare and ensure that even if my Scotty was missing, and that happens quite a lot, and people want to ensure that their monitoring system can detect that. But even if it's missing, it's not enough to tell me. I want to know what actually happened. And if it's not missing, did I actually switch to the commercial? Did my content change? Moreover, and this is kind of on the roadmap, not available in the product right now, but we want to look at things like, did I absolutely use all my opportunity window to insert commercials? Or maybe I went back from this too early and I lost 15 seconds of opportunity window. So it's really taking the ad insertion monitoring to the next level.
Yeah, and that's Scuddy is one of 513 video and audio attributes that the real-time media platform monitors across the entire channel path from live production to delivery.
Mm-hmm.
It's a lot, and we invest a lot in engineers to help you design your monitoring strategy. And since that's all we do all the time, we can tell you what works, what doesn't work, and the challenges. So it's as much a business challenge as it is a technological challenge. You've got this technological debt. You've got to deal with it. You need a vendor to partner with you, and you need to be sure that it's somebody that's going to move with you moving forward. So, um, If you have any question about monitoring, we'd love to talk to you about it. We learn about it every single time. If you happen to be in that service provider market in the United States, I know many of you are not, but our partner BNS are the experts that are guiding us, into that marketplace and helping come up with the new business models for that market as well. Chuck, any final words from you?
No, well, yes. It's been great to partner with you guys, and we're excited about the platform. And you have just so many interesting tools, and we didn't really get into the deployment model, but we found that just the full engagement is just easy. It's very easy tool to deploy, get into it very quickly, get it set up, configured, be able to work with it, and once again, that's the expertise that we can help bring is come in and assess and work with the various providers and understand what their environments are like, so we can help them get set up very quickly to the point using the tool. Once you get a sense of how it works, how it operates, is you'll realize very quickly what you're getting, and building that trust with you guys and with us.
I mean, this is all we do every single day for the last 16 years, and we still learn every single day from our clients on things that we have to add to this thing. And we certainly don't claim that we know everything all the time, but we will tell you that when it comes to collaborating and finding a solution to what you need, we'll put ourselves up against anybody in the marketplace. And I think that's really the most important thing. It's not about what we have today. It's about our ability to stay with you and keep you ahead of the game moving forward. So, Michael, thank you for putting up with me mostly. And Chuck,
I keep doing
anything
it
else
every
you'd like to close?
day. I have one more question for two of you, and I think we have 3 more minutes left.
Okay.
We going into a series of major industry events, starting with NCTC in August, SET in Brazil, IBC in September, in Amsterdam, NAB in New York in October, and many more. There's tons of different events. Do you have any message for people who want to attend those shows, what they should look for and what they can focus on?
Chuck, Hugo.
Sure. I think kind of the eye that I keep out or what I'm looking for when I go to these shows is, we've seen a lot about AI, low latency, all these new technologies. How are they being integrated into products? We even talked about the move to more hybrid, maybe on-prem and cloud. How are technologies and partners adopting these shifts in the industry and into their products, right? What is the maturity of what they built? So AI, fantastic tool, great buzzword, but what does that really mean? And how is that integrated into the products, and what are people doing with it? So that's kind of stuff I'm looking at. I don't want to just see the AI tag. I want to go, how are you implementing or utilizing this as a tool within your product to enhance what you're doing? Same with, does your product support a hybrid architecture? Are there things that I can do both on-prem and in the cloud so my business can be flexible? So I want to keep looking at these things to see how they're maturing in the vendor and partner community.
All I would say, said it kind of earlier, is, we're addicted to shiny objects and sexy technology. And at the end of the day, when you go home, you have to deliver a higher quality of your service at a scale you never had before. So I think when you go to these shows, you should be looking at what is going to help you, adapt to the change as fast as possible, not jeopardize your existing business, put you in a position for the future. And I don't think that's exclusively technology. I think that is the values and the culture and the organizations and the ecosystem that you set up. Because I can tell you, our customers challenge us every single day on a system that they bought a month ago, and we're having to adapt and change all the time to keep them ahead of things. Their business isn't slowing down. So I think it's about who you partner with for the future. That's what I would suggest.
Thank you very much.
Awesome.
Thank you,
Right on
Michael.
time.
Bye, Chuck.